Hey, turn that thing up.
The aspect of my job that I love the most is getting the opportunity to come to the church or any of the churches that we work in, to go into the kitchens and to see the staff at work. And what I love about that is just seeing not only people who are being productive and getting the job done and getting the soup made, but I love seeing the sense of community that exists in the kitchen as well. The Rock Carrot started a decade ago when I got to know an individual in my church community who was struggling on the margins. And she was an individual that was just coming out of high school at the time, and living in a family that both parents were on social assistance and their family lived in generational poverty. And as I got to know her within the context of our church congregation, I could see that she had a lot of potential to continue doing some things in her life, but her parents' plan for her life was to go straight onto social assistance. Their perspective of her was that they could see that she had a disability, a mild learning disability, and because of that learning disability, they just didn't see that there was many options for her after she graduated high school. And so as I got to know that young woman, I could see into the future of the course of her life, and the trajectory of her life really was that she was going to be on social assistance. And although that's a path that many people have to be on, I could see that she had more potential to do something else. Once she graduated high school, I suggested to her that there were some programs that the government has available that she would be able to access, resume building and skills training that were sort of soft skills. And for 6 months, she went twice a week and did that soft skills training. And they had sort of promised that at the end of all this training and work that she would have the opportunity to interview for some jobs. And she interviewed for 3 jobs and she didn't get any of them. And so that left me with a huge sense of loss. I built up her expectations. It was very personal for me and for her as well, because she just had some limitations that prevented her from working in full-time paid employment. So that sense of loss and frustration that I felt at that time really led me to thinking, wow, this is a much deeper issue than I realized. On one hand, I hear the narrative of people in my church congregation who aren't making ends meet. They're coming in, they're talking to the pastor once a month, they're needing winter coats, winter boots, crisis intervention pieces, meal cards, community meals, all those things to just meet their monthly needs, and really they're failing. Most people on social assistance are up to 40% below the poverty line, so they're really not making ends meet. They're making anywhere between $700 and $1,200 a month, and that's barely covering their rent. So they're needing supports, and yet at the same time, I kept hearing this narrative that they wanted to work. They wanted not only to contribute, they wanted to earn their own income, they wanted to contribute to something, and they were really struggling with a sense of loneliness and a lack of community because they had no opportunity to participate in the workforce.
And all of a sudden, someone thought, well, you know what, let's make soup. Everybody can make soup. And they started selling soup to the community, and it worked. It wasn't just soup, it was great soup. And when it was great soup, all of a sudden they wanted 2 kinds of great soup. And they got bigger and they got bigger and they got bigger. Now it's actually an enterprise or a company working out of the kitchen of the Presbyterian Church.
And through cooking soup and selling it just to our congregation and the local community, we were able to pay them. And so that started out really from the germ of an idea In our first year, we hoped to sell $5,000 worth of soup, and we sold $25,000 worth of soup. And we really realized that God had a bigger plan in mind than maybe we anticipated. And we saw that people were thriving in work. They had a community, they had a little family of people. They enjoyed each other's company. They had purpose in life. They had value and dignity because of that work opportunity, and they had income. So it was, from the get-go, we could see that it was really meeting some significant needs in their life.
It's not only successful, but people are now counting on it. These people, restaurants are buying their soup. People are buying their soup. Their soup is being sold in supermarkets. So it's not just a couple of local kids with their parents sort of making soup on a Tuesday morning. This has become a full-fledged, very, very, very organized business. The government has to recognize that that's worth something. It's worth something when people want to go to work and they're happy. And I mean, other programs, the government throws millions of dollars at programs that fail. They need to take a closer look of the way that the raw carrot formed and use that as a template to a program that the government could fund for other organizations like that. And so that, and use the raw carrot as an example. I mean, almost have them take their act on the road and show other churches, other facilities that are struggling, show them how they did it. I mean, at this point, I think the people in place would be happy to be a template. This moment in time of the raw carrot was because the right four people belonged to the right church at the right time, with the right clergy and the right council and the right mayor. So it's all the stars have aligned. Now, but when you start losing those stars, and they will go, we need to be able to sustain what we believe in this moment of time. So this council will always give it money, give the program money, give encouragement. I'll always go up and speak to them when they're feeling down. I'll always go up and go to any of their openings because I believe in it. And I've seen it. I know these people. These are people I grew up with. They're all doing something that they know is successful. They're being praised for it, and they're doing it with their friends. If you go up and watch them work, they can't wait. They can't wait to go to work, and they almost feel, although they're tired, they feel badly that the day's over.
So I was originally in the financial industry for over 30 years. And had been praying for a long time to find new direction and hoped that it would be in the food industry. I'd originally thought I'd like to open a soup kitchen and went to George Brown College and took some chef courses. But the Lord had different plans for me. When I was forced into retirement, He found me a position here at the Raw Carrot. So I started off volunteering with the organization. And then when the opportunity came for me to manage the site, I did that. The staff not only gained the work experience, but they also gained a sense of community, and some of them too get a strengthening of faith, and some of them were for the first time introduced to faith. And so it's a huge blessing. I'm blessed more than I'm a blessing.
When you're all of a sudden bringing in revenue into the church, and not profit, let's be clear, but revenue through sales. This is like, for some churches, that's really outside the boundaries of what they've been doing previously. And some people had a lot of questions about that. And it's right to question, right? We need the back and forth of that kind of thing. But having a church leadership that was willing to see the vision, pray through those decisions, and to take some risks and give us a chance to let that happen, that was an absolutely critical element to the vision of how this grew right from the outset. There's no way we could have started without it.
I'm really blessed that this all happened, because if not, I would probably still maybe be looking for another job. Before, I was just working in babysitting, before then doing this. So, really a good blessing.
Although paid employment is ultimately what we need for sure, there are a group of people, a large group of people that doesn't work for. And the type of people I'm referring to are those that might have a mental illness where they are so impacted by that chronic cycle of mental illness that they're in and out of a mental facility many times a year. And so they're losing their jobs or they're being fired. They're being told that they're a liability. They are having an employer that doesn't understand their needs. And so that's a very particular situation that people are dealing with. And then you've got different folks with developmental or cognitive needs. And again, because of their circumstances, they may not be able to work full time. And so we're really this missing middle of supported employment, and this social purpose employment is something that I wish, I'd love for people to understand a little bit more, that there's another solution. We don't, it's not the square peg in the round hole. Some people are going to work in full-time paid employment, and that's great. And we need to make room for various people with disabilities and mental illness in that space too. And there's been, we've got some work happening on that end, and that's great. But this aspect of social purpose employment, where we're looking at people's social needs and saying we need to do something about social needs in balance with income and revenue generation as well.
We have lots of stories that we had a young man who worked for us when we first started out, and he was looking to gain job experience so that he could gain his children back from foster care. So there's a lot of meaningful and impactful things that happen.
It has changed a lot of people's life since being on ODSP, it gives us a little extra money to help pay for our bills, shows people that we can do what every other person can do.
I think if somebody feels the inspiration and the desire and the frustration that's building up inside of them for some sort of social need, they should recognize that is something that God has given them. But I do think if you're someone who God has placed that need way down in your heart, that you really feel like God is calling you to something and you just don't know what it is, wait for that to develop. Don't let that go, because sometimes that journey is like a seed growing. We talk about our name being the raw carrot, and that the process of the carrot being buried way down in the earth and developing under the soil, and it taking a long time for that to come up. That is the journey that God places on our hearts sometime. And I had to do a lot of other things before the opportunity really was there for me to jump in, and then it took a step of faith, right? So sometimes it's a long journey and a step of faith. But I do think God provides the opportunity at the right time. I never could have envisioned that God would have brought us to this journey of scaling across Ontario and now launching interprovincially into, hoping to scale across Canada. That certainly is not where this started. It started with such a small, one person, literally one person that I knew that I had a burden for. And, that grew to 4 people in the church. And then that grew to, we employ about 35 people now across Ontario and are hoping to scale that much larger.
I'm glad that I got to live in the moment of the success of the Raw Carrot in a county that not only wants them here, but is trying very hard to support them and move them forward.
But that vision has to start with that idea of the mustard seed. And so just jump in where God has placed you. It doesn't have to be far away. It doesn't have to be the mission fields. The mission field is right in front of you.